Hello and welcome back to the When You're podcast, the podcast for when you're doing anything. Today we're talking about when you're watching The Dark Knight Rises. Now, this movie was a big deal. This movie was a big deal because it had just come off the back of 2008's The Dark Knight, which was unbelievably fantastic. And this was also around the same time that Iron Man and The Dark Knight both released that summer or that year. So it was really the beginning. Superhero films were always kind of like in the, it was already in the movie business. It was already there. So they had done X-Men, they had done previous Batman movies, the Spider-Man films, the trilogy with Tobey Maguire had kind of come out. So it was kind of like, everybody had kind of like this superhero fever. But in 2012, it was on another level. It was on another level because in between 2008 to 2012, that 4-year gap, guess what else came out? The Incredible Hulk came out. They also came out with Thor, and they also came out with Captain America. So in between, and they also came out with like Iron Man 2. They came out with more superhero movies. They were just pumping them out. You know what I mean? So 2008, 2010, 2011 was just like a starter for what was going to become the Avengers, which was coming out in 2012 at the same time. So it was like this conflicting battle between like The Dark Knight Rises and the Avengers, and that's like where it was. And I remember it was a very big deal. And I ended up watching both of them, I think, in theaters. I was 12 years old, so I don't think I really fully understand the deep themes of The Dark Knight Rises like I do now after watching it for like, the millionth time. It's so good, but it was just a matter of like, that's where this movie was. That's how this movie was pushed out. And I thought, rewatching it now and thinking about how I first watched it back then, it's such a complete, the movie has such a new meaning to me. It has so many layers to it, and it just screams at me to do the same as Bruce Wayne, which is like just find this new not lust, what's the right word, this newfound faith, this newfound like hope for life, something like that along those lines. But anyways, about the movie. So there have been plenty of breakdowns about this movie as well as The Dark Knight. Really, this whole trilogy and Christopher Nolan's films, who do such an incredible job. I'm just gonna kind of talk about a few pieces of the movie, a few points of it that I find really enjoyable and that I really like. So, number one, I think I want to talk about the aftermath of The Dark Knight. So we see Gotham City succeed, in a way. Or I guess it would be better to say that the Joker lost. I think that'd be a better way to phrase it, or to say it. It's not so much that they did lose. Batman, Jim Gordon, Harvey Dent, they were the ones responsible for the predicament that they're in. And then Harvey Dent had to ruin it all by being, by collapsing, by lowering himself to the level of the Joker, to Batman's level. It's just, it sucks, he poisoned himself. But anyways, we see Gotham City's success isn't really all that it's cracked up to be. You know how it's like, maybe you go to like a fancy big restaurant and then they give you like small portion sizes and you're just like, It is fine dining. It is big, like it is. I'm sure that it's full of like flavor and impactful, but like I don't know the difference between that and maybe like a big, juicy cheeseburger with French fries. Like which one do you get more meal, like a real meal out of? You know what I mean? Like which one is like more of your style? Your kind of like something that you really enjoy. And that's kind of how I feel with this, with the Gotham City after locking away Gotham's criminals, is that on the surface, Gotham City is thriving. It's looking great. The numbers of crime have gone down. Everybody's should be happy. Gotham City should be thriving. It should be building. It should be everything they want it to be. But, we kind of see this level of depression and anxiety shown through Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon, where it's like Jim, he has this level of shame for essentially lying to the people, putting Batman away, or like having him take the blame for Harvey Dent because he had done so much work. It's easy to, it's not, if the truth came out about Harvey Dent, then all the criminals would be put back on the street and their job would never be over. Whereas like, because he had already set them up for success, and then a little, a big setback that he pushed them into, it's just so much easier to lie, to make these excuses, so that way they can piggyback off of his good work. And it makes you think about, like, is Gotham City really at peace, or is everything just quiet? Doesn't mean that there's not bad people or criminals still out there. It just means that they're just hiding. They're quiet. They're not what they're supposed to be. And that's where we eventually get Bane from, is because they're not what they used to be. They're not at the top of their game like they were in The Dark Knight. If you watch The Dark Knight and then you watch The Dark Knight Rises, like, they're in two completely different spots, and they're in two different, I feel like in The Dark Knight, they're so much sharper. There's so much more action involved. There's so much more that they have to push against or they have to combat. Whereas in this one, it feels like it's silent and deadly, so to speak. It's not, it's not them facing anything. It's not them really confronting or being sharp between the ears. It's more of like just them enjoying this so-called success. And you see it because Bruce Wayne is held up inside, and Jim Gordon is kind of like, has this anxiety that like something bad is going to happen again. He's shaking. He's like, his wife has left him, took the kids because he's lying about Harvey Dent. It just puts a huge wedge in between them. And even though they did succeed, you can see it on Jim Gordon's face that it's not, he doesn't hold his head up with pride. He doesn't feel good about what he's done, in the same way that you ever do some like hard manual labor, or you ever do like something like outside, or you build something, or you do some yard work or whatever, right? Like, there's a sense of pride and accomplishment because you make your yard look good, you make your yard look clean, you just, there's something about that where it's like you can feel happy or you can feel proud about doing certain things, right? But he's not holding his head up in pride. It's just the way that the situation has played out, that he has to accept his failure and he has to lie about it. So it's not holding his head up with pride or being proud of his work of locking up all the criminals. It's accepting, he's holding his head up in failure, and he's lying to the people. And it just makes it really difficult for him to have to face that alone. He doesn't have any backup this time to like kind of help him through it, in the same way that Batman gave Jim the same kind of, I don't want to say the confidence, but he gave him a little bit of extra something, a companion, a friend, really, somebody to help him through it. But then we see Gotham without Batman. And what does Gotham City without Batman look like? Is Gotham rebuilding? What has really changed over the course of 8 years in this movie? And it doesn't feel like much of anything has fully changed. It doesn't really seem like, not that I can tell. You don't see the kids frolicking happy in the streets. You see them like kind of for example, with the orphanage and the kids' homes, they're not like happy and peaceful. They're more just like with their heads down and trying to like survive. You know, it's not prosperous at all. It's very much the opposite. They don't have anything to rely on because Bruce Wayne, the Wayne Enterprises isn't doing what he used to do. They're not as wealthy as they used to be, so to speak. But so Gotham City hasn't really made any big, huge developments with the streets cleaned. The prisoners are all in jail, but it's based on a lie. It just 8 years of Batman being gone. What has it really done? What is 8 years without Batman really given the people of Gotham? You know, it hasn't given them justice because they believe Harvey Dent was murdered by Batman. It hasn't given them any sense of closure as of who is the Batman and is he still in Gotham City? And it leaves a lot to think about, you know. Where did he go and what's going on? And it's also kind of weird that nobody points out that, oh, Batman is gone and Bruce Wayne becomes a shut-in. Like, but then again, Bruce Wayne has always been kind of like a recluse or somebody who, just somebody who doesn't really let the public in, you know. And we don't know what Gotham City is still has crime, but it's manageable. It's easy. It becomes, it doesn't become about making what's best or developing the best of the best. It just becomes about lazy sort of work, you know? So like, if I were going to fight a horse, I would probably prepare a lot. I would train, I would exercise, I would like really prepare for it. Whereas if you told me I have to fight like a baby chick, like it gets a lot easier, you know? There's no necessary for training. I'm stronger than the thing. I can stomp on it. Like I would easily win, right? That's how the Gotham's criminals have become. It's kind of like the spoilers for The Wire, but it's kind of like what Omar talks about with the criminals. He talks about how do you expect to run with the wolves come nighttime when you spend all day sparring with the puppies? Because Gotham's criminals are not as strong, or they're not what they used to be because they're all locked up. You know, Gotham City's police force has also become not as, you know, they're not, you know, what's the phrase I'm trying to think for? It's like friction sharpens the blade. You know what I mean? They've become rusty. They've become, you know, they're not what they have to be. And there are a special select few who are able to pay attention to the details, who are able to be smart and sensible, aka Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character in this movie, who I also really like. But yeah, the city is still, you know, on the surface is doing fine, but that's because it's like a volcano. It's about to erupt, but nobody can see the lava oozing up. Nobody goes up there to check. Nobody goes up there to really like go, whoa, you know what I mean? In the same way that they did before. So we talked about Gotham City without Batman, but what about Bruce Wayne without Batman? So this is where it gets really interesting, and where we see a lot of, it's really all about Bruce Wayne, isn't it? Because Batman is who he truly is supposed to be. And he's been a shut-in for 8 years. And for a long time, I was kind of like, maybe like when I first saw it, or like the first few times when I was younger, I was like, why doesn't he just stay Batman? Like, that was a pretty cool thing. Like, why does he just hide away? And it's because, one, he feels like he already did his job and the Batman's not needed anymore. And two, it's because he doesn't have anything else. So in Rachel's letter in The Dark Knight that Alfred reads and eventually burns, she says it right there, is that like she did mean that they could be together, but she knows, and what also Alfred realizes himself, is that Bruce Wayne is always going to need Batman as well. It's a part of who he is. It's who he really is. He's not this eccentric billionaire playboy. He's not this person who buys hotels and goes on fancy dates and on yachts. He's angry. He wants to beat up criminals and save the city. The people who are in large a part of a system that has, put people in poverty and hit him in the gut by killing his parents. So... and I also wondered to myself, like, why did Alfred burn the letter? Like, what was that? What was that trying to do? And they explained it in the movie. It was just to save Bruce Wayne pain, but it was also to kind of stop him from being Batman. So Alfred, in reading that letter, goes like, I know that he loved Rachel, and she chose Harvey Dent over him, and it would just break his heart. But at the same time, by burning the letter and letting him live in this imagination that they could be together, he would give up being the Batman. He would give up, he could accept the fact that there is something more, also out there, and he can move on. She's dead, of course, and there's grief comes with that, but he was expecting Bruce to sort of accept her death or come to terms with it in a better way. And if he didn't have that dream with Rachel, if that dream with Rachel was essentially shattered, if her and Harvey Dent, if he knew that she chose Harvey Dent over him, then Bruce Wayne would just be the Batman still. So in burning that letter, he messed up Bruce's emotions, his psyche. He kind of just like, that's why he becomes a recluse. He finished his job as Batman, and he has nothing else to live for, because the only person that he had is dead now. So now he's this shut-in. And there's this great exchange where Alfred tells him that where he tells him the truth, essentially, that he burned the letter that Rachel gave him. And Bruce reacts, he's just kind of like, why would you're using Rachel to get me to stop from being Batman. You're using Rachel to kind of trying to get me to ignore my nature, who I am. But it was actually the truth. And he says a line where it's just like, you expect to destroy my world and then think we shake hands. And there's a little part of me that wanted Alfred to get a little bit snappy, a little bit mad, a little bit angry, where he goes like, what world, what life have you created? The house is empty. It's nothing. You haven't created or found anything for yourself. Well, he does say this, but in that moment, I wanted him to snap a little bit, just a little bit of anger, just a little bit of toughness from Alfred, which is what world have you created? You don't have Batman, and without Batman, you have completely ruined everything else for yourself. You haven't gone out there and you haven't found a life. You really haven't moved on from anything. You're living in the past. You have to let it go, And it's sad because we both know what Bruce Wayne wants, and that's death. And that's what's really, really sad. And it's what Alfred is trying to keep him from. By becoming Batman, he believes that he wants to die. He wants to go out there and face a problem that he can't fix and then die, because he hasn't been living. It's just been a complete big funeral. And in that way, the Joker has really so much power over him and Jim Gordon and the city, really. And it's what allows Bane and the League of Shadows to come in and destroy Gotham, essentially. Really, just hack it at its knees. He holds Gotham hostage, and he breaks Bruce, I mean, he really just tries to destroy the city. And we learn a lot about Bane, like towards the third act of the movie, and it's just understanding that, you know, it's not that he's done anything really awful per se. It's just that he has been a part of. I don't want to say he's been a victim. I mean, he's still a bad person. You know, he's still following the League of Shadows like rules and like ideas of destroying and killing innocent people, or you know, at least those who aren't involved in crime. But it's also like he's fulfilling. He is he is the body or the physical strength that can enact Ra's al Ghul's. I mean, as he says, if Ra's al Ghul's destiny, he's the physical body that can fight, or the strength to do that thing, to do those things. But Talia, or Miranda in the movie, played by Marion Cotillard. I hope I'm saying that right. Fantastic actress. She does this job. She does this role very well up until her, death. The death was a little bit kind of cheesy, but whatever. You know, we let that go. Fine, whatever. But we just see what Bane is as a villain towards Bruce Wayne, and ultimately what he makes Bruce confront, which is his death. You know, Bruce Wayne, when he and Bane fight, he's not looking to really save the people of Gotham. He's not looking to... I mean, he wants... it's so tricky because he doesn't go there to really... What's the right word? To really save anyone. You know, in the same way that he was trying to save Gotham against the Joker. You know, he was trying to stop those boats from exploding. Or the same way that he was trying to save Gotham City from the water supply when Ra's al Ghul was on the train. Right? Those are examples of him having this great strength and this great hope for life and the life of Gotham City by stopping them. And in the same way, it doesn't feel like that in his confrontation with Bane. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot on the line. And it also feels like he just wants to die. So he goes to Bane to essentially die. But Bane knows that Bruce doesn't fear death. He's not afraid of it. He wants to die because he has nothing else left. But as we all learn, and what he learns is that he has to rise above his want for death, or to accept that dying really is what makes him hopeful for his life. Makes him hopeful for Gotham City to take new life, for him to inspire the people to hope and to take action, because the Batman can't be forever. So, broken from his back, his spirit also defeated and crushed, seeing Gotham City being held hostage by something that he created to help the city, you know, the power source or whatever, the clean energy fuel or whatever. And then he just has to learn the strength to escape that pit, to escape the hole that he is in. His physical recovery isn't enough. His physical strength isn't enough. The true way to escape is... The true way for him to escape the hole is his want for life. His wanting to live. You know, in the same way that Talia escaped from the pit when she was a little girl. You don't jump as far if you're afraid of death. You don't go as you don't use all of your strength in one final leap of faith. If you're secured by a rope, if you're held on to by this thing, that like gives you a little bit of security, a little bit of comfort, right? But it's actually because you're so afraid, you don't want to die, that you get that little extra boost, that little extra adrenaline, that little extra oomph to jump and make it and escape. That's the strength to escape, the will to live. And Bruce had lost that. And essentially, he comes back as the Dark Knight. That's when he officially returns as Batman. That's when he officially surrenders his life to who he really is, or who he should be or can be. Because for 8 years, he was nothing. For 8 years, he would have welcomed death. Before the pit, before all of this, before Bane, in between that 8-year time gap, he would have died. He would have died. I almost said happily, but he would have died, and he would have had no issue about it. He would have been like, yeah, I died. That's it. I saved Gotham. The love of my life is gone. What else is there? But now, with this confrontation, this real push against him, because of, because he sees what the city has become and what he's essentially turned it into by turning a blind eye all those years. By not being the Batman, he has caused the city so much more harm because he hasn't been focusing on the city's problems. If he was the Batman, he would have investigated those tunnels. He would have found Bane's operation. They would have confronted a lot sooner. There just would have been so much more. And in a lot of ways, Alfred causes this whole movie by burning that letter. Because then Bruce Wayne would still be Batman, and he would be at the top of his game. But, that's not the way things turned out. And he inspires the city to also rise up, in the same way that the police officers rise up out of the prison, or not the prison, they're trapped underground in the sewers or whatever, right? And then they rise up, the city rises up. The city is capable of rising up. The city is capable of fighting back, and he's inspiring hope for the city. And it's really cool to see. And you wish there were more examples of that in today's world. And I guess there are some examples of it, but it becomes really difficult to find symbols like the Batman or things like that. And people only care about those symbols once things get difficult, Nobody wants to, you want to be there for the big epic fight, right? But you don't want to be there for the years of investigating and learning, right? You don't want to be there for the kind of, I guess you could say, the boring parts, of like an investigation. Right? Like, it's not all just gunshots and arrests and big stuff like that. It's a process. It's a build-up to get to those points, to get to those big moments. But anyways, The Dark Knight Rises, man. This whole Christopher Nolan trilogy is really special, and it's something that, I still think of it as the best Batman piece of work, especially because it is such a good trilogy. And then after that, they went like totally Batman commercial with Ben Affleck and Batman versus Superman. It just feels like this is really a beautiful iteration of Batman and the character, and a look at Gotham City, So I thought this movie was just a great thing to rewatch, 11 years since it came out, and it still holds up. It still is very powerful. It's still very dynamic, and it just makes you think about your life, the things that maybe you're kind of letting pass you by, so to speak. And if there's any way that you can also rise up above certain challenges. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.